Till now, we have been creating classes in Java with a main method inside it, writing programs to find a prime number, factorial number, happy number, Smith number, maybe say creating arrays, finding something in the arrays, creating methods and so on. But then classes are way more powerful and they bring in much more features than what we have seen till now. So this video focuses on how to create a class, what features it brings in when we talk about classes in Java. So stay tuned till the end of this video. Hey everyone, this is Shalini Mittal and you are watching Tech Gatha. Let's understand about classes and what powerful features that we discussed it brings on to the developers. So say for example, we have objects in real-time world, right? So let me consider a simple object called as rectangle. Now when I talk about rectangle, can you tell me the characteristics or the properties of a rectangle as an object? We can say rectangle has a length, rectangle has a breadth. Now when I talk about the dimensions of a rectangle, I can also find the area of a rectangle, I can find the perimeter of a rectangle, and if I want to draw a rectangle for some dimensions, I also need to provide the dimensions, or I can say set dimensions of the rectangle, right? I can say this. Now once I set the dimensions, say length with 3 and breadth with as 4, I can draw a rectangle of dimensions 3 by 4. So I've set the dimensions. I can find the area of the same rectangle with the dimensions 3 by 4, and I can also find the rectangle, and I can also find the perimeter of the rectangle with the same dimensions 3 by 4. If I now want to create one more rectangle, I can with different dimensions say length as 4 and breadth as 2. Will I be able to find the area of another rectangle with different dimensions? Will I be able to find the perimeter of another rectangle with different dimensions? Yes, we can, right? Can I say I created two objects of type rectangle to which I can set dimensions, I can find area, and I can find perimeter. So can I say all these three belong to the rectangle? They provide performing operations on the data within the rectangle. This is where class comes into picture. Classes in Java are nothing but they are nouns. So remember, nouns in the real-time world are things or objects that exist and we can see. When I say they exist, they occupy space. Now when I talk about they occupy space, in the programming world, when we say they occupy space, means they occupy memory. We have already seen a keyword used to reserve memory. Remember anyone? New. Remember when we create an array, we actually create an array with the keyword new, telling the Java compiler how much memory to reserve for an array of specific size. So if I am creating an array of integer type, storing 5 values, int has 4 bytes, 5 into 4, so it's 20 bytes, it reserves memory of 20 bytes. When I talk about classes, so now we are going to move towards classes. This was about creating an array. Now I want to create two objects of different dimensions on which I should be able to perform all these operations. Whenever you are able to figure out any object that has some characteristics and you can identify the functions that operate on this data, you create a class. So the way that you create a class is, so I can say I want a rectangle as a class. So the way you do it is, we'll be saying class is a keyword followed by the name of the class. Because I'm doing for rectangle, I say class rectangle followed by curly brace. Now because this rectangle has dimensions, length and breadth, to store the value we use variables. So I will be declaring a variable int length, I will be declaring a variable int and breadth, right? Now remember, these two variables are a part of this class. Remember, they go within the class. Now, I want to have these methods because they perform some operations, calculating area, calculating perimeter, setting the values for length and breadth that set dimensions. Because they are doing something. Methods are always verbs. Remember, methods always do something, hence they are represented as verbs and they operate on the object, that's noun. So then I can create a method saying public void set dimensions, which again can set the dimensions for the length and for the breadth. So basically it can take parameters int L, int B, and I can say length is equals to L and I can say breadth is equals to B. Same way I need to find area, so I can say public void area and I can just print SOPLN. Area is length into breadth. So basically this will be length into the class variable, that is the breadth. Same way to find perimeter, it will be public void perimeter and then curly brace, I can say SOPLN 2 into length plus the breadth. Right? And then I close the class. Now the important thing to note over here is I have this class curly brace from here. It stops over here. So all these belong to the same class. Length and breadth are a part of this rectangle. So you can see they are not inside any method. Area, set dimensions and perimeter. These are methods of a class. So then I can say these are basically, so let me delete this. I can say these are data members of a class. They hold data and they are a part of a class, hence data members, or then these variables are also called as instance variables. These variables which you pass as the parameter of a method are the local variables, and these three methods are basically called as member method. Why? Because they are methods, yes, hence method, and they are part of a class, hence they are called as member method of a class. So whenever you are able to identify and bind the common functionalities and characteristics into one, you create a class. So say you create a class rectangle, you create class student, you create class employee, you create class teacher, you create class check, you can create class bank, you can create class of any noun that exists, which will have some characteristics and functions that operate upon it. Now I said that we use a new keyword to create the object of a class. So where all that flows along, right? Now we have this class which consists of the length, breadth, set dimensions, area and perimeter, and they all are part of a class. Now, so we have created this structure. Now once the structure is created, I should be able to create n number of different objects just by changing the values for the length and breadth. So I can have 100 rectangles all say with the same dimensions, or there can be 100 rectangles with different dimensions. Now how do we do that? How do we say that, okay fine, I want to have a rectangle object with say 3 by 4 dimensions, or another rectangle object with say 4 by 2 dimensions, and just by this one class I should be able to find area and perimeter for this rectangle and this rectangle as well. So then with this structure of the class created, I can say I want to create a rectangle with the dimensions set as 3 by 4. To do that, you have the class name as rectangle. So when we say I want to declare a variable x of type int, how do you say declare a variable x of type int? I want to declare a variable r1 of type rectangle. And then this rectangle now is not a normal variable as opposed to x, which is an int, and I can just initialize the value as 10. But this r1 is of a different type, that is my own class, that is rectangle. To create the object of this class, you would be saying new followed by the class name, that is rectangle. So now what we have done, we created an object R1 of type rectangle the way we create a variable x of type int. So int was a data type and x was a variable of that type. Rectangle now is basically a user defined data type. Hence the classes are also called as user defined data type because I have defined the type of this rectangle, and when I say data type, it occupies memory. And how much memory in my case here is 4 bytes for int length, 4 bytes for int breadth, that is 4 plus 4, 8 bytes plus the memory occupied by the methods. And the more functions, the more methods, the more variables you add, the size will then increase, or if you remove, the size decreases. So can you see, I can define the size of a particular class. Hence, classes are also called as user defined data type. Now once I create a class as rectangle, I want to be able to access these functions. The way you do it is, you have the object r1 and you say r1 dot, and the function name is set dimensions, and you can pass in the value 3, 4. Now when I pass 3 and 4, my L is 3, B is 4, my length becomes 3 and my breadth becomes 4. And then when you say R1 dot area, or when you say R1 dot perimeter, the area is called on the object R1, and the R1 has dimensions 3 and 4. Length and breadth values are 3 and 4. When I am calling the perimeter on R1, again the R1 has dimensions 3 and 4. It is able to calculate perimeter for R1. Same way if I create one more object, so I can say rectangle R2 is equals to new rectangle, and then I can set the dimensions R2 dot set dimensions, passing in the value 5 by 6. Now the second object R2 has dimensions 5 by 6. I say R2 dot area, R2 dot perimeter, because the methods are invoked on R2. It understands for R2 the dimensions are 5 by 6. It is able to calculate the area for R2 with the dimensions 5 and 6. So it's that pretty easy. You just create a class, you have data members or instance variables, and you have member methods or local variables. And classes are called as user defined data type because we define the user, because we define the size of a class. Classes are also called as object factory. Now why it is called as an object factory? Because you can see with one class I can create 2 objects. This way I can create 100 objects with different dimensions set for the rectangle. Classes are also called as composite data type. Composite because it is composed of different data types. So for example, when you want to create a rectangle, you want to provide the color of the rectangle, I can go here and I can add a variable, say string and color. The moment I do this, you can see it is composed of 3 different data types. It is composed of 2 different data types. Hence, classes are also called as composite data type. So you will hear these terms very often being used as user-defined data type, composite data type, or object factory of a class. So this is all about the basic concepts of classes, and next video we will see the implementation of the same, and we'll just verify when we are calling r1.area, we're getting the area for the dimensions 3 by 4. Till then, happy learning, take care, and bye-bye.